And given the fact that the wage bill is at 12.5% of the GDP, 5% more than the globally accepted rate, it almost seems like some of these pay cuts are merely insignificant to what needs to be done. And that's a lot. Of course, Hussein Mohammed is now joined live by the Deputy President, William Ruto, to unpack this issue. Hussein.
Right, Janet, and the question is, what else needs to be done? Our big question again tonight, is Kenya on the verge of an economic collapse? Let's just paint a picture of how it looks, how much people earn. First of all, the public wage bill as a problem, 521.6 billion in the 2013-2014 budget, financial year rather, 12% of the GDP. Normal practice should be about 7%. This is about 682,000 public servants. Now, let's look at how people are spending. The executive, 412.1 million shillings annually. Judiciary, 784.9 million shillings. Judiciary, we are up to the High Court judges, Appeal Court judges, Supreme Court, that is the Deputy Chief Justice and the Chief Justice. We're not even going to the magistrates. Parliament, this is both the National Assembly and the Senate, 6 billion shillings. Then we go ahead to security chiefs, 70.3 million shillings yearly. Constitutional commissions, 1.19 billion shillings yearly. Parastatal chiefs, 1.5 billion shillings annually. Grand total, 17 billion shillings. But of course, it's also good, worth it to mention here that we haven't really added up all the allowances. It was a bit hard to get all that. Now, Teacher Service Commission, teachers in the country, 300,000 teachers, they get about 149 billion shillings annually. And now the parastatal chiefs, we had a task force on parastatal reforms. They audited 193 parastatals out of 262. Now, just 193 parastatals are spending 131 billion shillings annually. That is just 121,000 workers. Again, like we said, 193 out of 262, meaning figures of 69 are not available. So this number could actually go up. Now, of course, we are joined by Deputy President William Ruto. Thank you so much for making time for us on your busy schedule. First question, like you said earlier, Kenya is not on the... Our question is Kenya on the verge of an economic collapse? Your answer is no. So paint for us, how serious is the problem of the wage bill in this country, and why should it matter to the monarchy watching us?
Thank you very much, Hussein, for having me this evening. First, why are we having this discussion or conversation? There are 4 or 5 reasons why. Number one, this is a debate that is overdue. It should have happened before, earlier than now. This is a discussion or a conversation about 56% of the money we collect from taxpayers, because that is the wage bill. That is the amount of money, 500, as you said correctly, 521 billion Kenya shillings, money we collect from taxpayers. Right. It's not small money. Right. It is an important conversation because international best practice, as you have said, the wage bill as a fraction of the GDP or as a function of the GDP should be at 7 or 8%. It is actually at 12.7, almost 13%, which means we are almost double the international best practice. This is a conversation we must have because 5 years ago, the wage bill was 240 billion. Today, it is 521. It has grown almost by 92%. It is something that must worry any reasonable person. And the trend, for your information, going forward, the trend is, if we go at the rate at which we are going, in another 1.5 years, it should be not 13% of GDP, it will be at 15.4% of GDP. What does it mean? You know, what does it mean? It means the following, that because we are collecting 900, for example, I'm just giving the figures for this year, We are collecting 931 billion Kenya shillings from Kenyans, from taxpayers. We are using 520 to pay to pay wages. We are using another 300 billion because our total recurrent expenditure is 822 billion. Meaning 88% of all the money we collect, we use it for wages, operational maintenance, total recurrent expenditure. We have 12% of the money to be used for development. That is a serious concern, you know, for the country and anybody. And that is why we want this debate on the table, so that, you know, it is important for the taxpayer, because ultimately that is the person who carries the bill. It is important for the taxpayer to know, to have information, so that going forward we can make better decisions because we are better informed. And the reason why we thought this debate was important is because as government we have done many of the things that we have planned to do. We've looked at the budget in totality, or it's in its entirety. And there are resources that we collect from Kenyans. There is money that we borrow from the domestic market. There is money that we borrow from development partners. There is money that we get from grants. Yeah, that's our total, the total money we receive. And the single biggest charge on all the money we get is the wage bill. We appreciate, and I hear many Kenyans are saying, gentlemen and ladies, I hope, you see, we see what you're saying about the wage bill. What are you doing about everything else? You know, is the wage bill the only thing you're doing? And I want to answer them and say, no. The wage bill is where we want a conversation to start. There are things that we have done as government, or we are going, and we have a plan on how to do as government to still manage the recurrent expenditure and free more resources for development. And why so? Let me ask, why so? Because we made a promise to Kenyans. We said we want to expand the economy by double digits, and by the end of time, we said we want to grow this economy sufficiently to create more jobs for our young people. That is our focus, and we have already planned for it, and we want to eliminate anything in between that may undermine that mission.
We'll come to some of the things you still plan to do to free more money for development. Now, some critics have argued, has there been a problem with public relations and how you've dealt with all this matter? You put it very rightly that there is a problem. You started with a gesture, you and the president and the cabinet taking a pay cut. Some, of course, have criticized that. It's commendable still. Some would argue, did you put the cat before the horse? Shouldn't you first have told people what the problem is before you start with pay cuts, that now people will look at these pay cuts with resentment other than the problem we have as a nation?
You know, kusema na kutenda means you don't just say things. You lead by example. Yeah? To position the debate properly, Kenyans needed to understand that this is not a problem we want to talk about. This is a challenge. We want to match what we say with what we do. And I don't think we have put the cart before the horse. Let me explain to you. Let me go back a bit. We have serious challenges of wastage in government. Yeah, we have serious challenges of wastage in government. I will give you an example. And wastage plus corruption. When we went for vehicle leasing, we have leased 1,200 vehicles for our policemen and women. Why did we go the leasing route? We went the leasing route because we have been buying vehicles, government vehicles, and sadly, at a price higher than what an ordinary citizen buys a vehicle. We used to buy Land Rover vehicles for our policemen and women. And we used to pay, as government, more money than you, Hussein, if you went to CMC to buy the same vehicle, you would pay less than us as government, and yet we are buying more vehicles. I mean, simple logic dictates that there is corruption and there is wastage. What did we do this year? For the same amount of money that you would buy 300 vehicles, we got 1,200 vehicles because we went the leasing route. What that means is we are not overcharged. The business of maintaining the vehicle is that of the leasee, the fellow who has leased the vehicles to us. Let me tell you why that is good. One of the vehicles that carry my staff got an accident 2 weeks ago. The front was hit, and when it was taken to the garage, the dealer who sold the vehicle, he told us that it would cost 1.1 million shillings to repair that car. I mean, just look at the logic. How is that possible? That is why we went the leasing route, so that if a vehicle gets an accident, there is insurance and they have to pay. So we have tackled where we have had wastage. Let me give you one more example.
We'll come to that. I promise you. Because we are coming to wastage, and I'll give you enough time to talk when you're talking about wastage and corruption. The issue of the pay cut. You're only going to save 43 million. That is the cabinet, if we look at that in 1 year. It's a gesture, really. It's symbolic. Why should it be forceful? And before you answer that question, if we can just have the soundbite of President Kenyatta saying that yesterday. Do we have that? Do you have the soundbite?
And today I say this, that all parastatal chiefs will conform to what the executive has done. They will conform. And we expect that they will take an equivalent 20% pay cut as we have taken. We expect it, because it is our job to formulate policy. And we expect them to do it. And failure to do so, I assure you, there are many Kenyans willing and ready to take up those jobs at that lower rate. They are. And those who resist, bas, waende kotini, hata koti kiwa award, it is cheaper for us to pay them off and get other people.
You are the policy makers. Now this comes just a day before Sarah Serem told us on Sunday Live here that these pay cuts should not be forceful. Now the way it is, clearly it's forceful. They have to take a pay cut. Now we know some may have planned their lives around the salaries they are taking, morally and legally. First legally, then morally. Is that right? I will give you 2 points. Number one, the president was very clear, and he said that parastatal chiefs, and for your information, Hussein, we have parastatal chiefs in Kenya who earn 2.5 million. They earn twice the salary the president earns. And when the president says these are the category of people who, as of necessity, surely, we live in the same country. If the president and cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries can live on 500, 600,000, a person earning 2.5 million shillings, if he takes a 20% pay cut, it means he will earn 2 million. He will surely survive in Kenya. I think that's what the president is simply saying, right? And it has nothing to do with the lower cadre of citizens, of workers, or employees for that matter. Point number two, if you look at the principle is this, that if you are working in an organization, the lowest paid worker
must not earn less than 20 times the highest paid worker, or in reverse, the highest paid worker must not earn more than 20 times the lowest paid worker. You know, that's really the principle in good economics.
Right.
So this is where we are heading, and we are saying that's why we needed the Salaries and Remunerations Commission, because we need an independent body to manage all of us into a situation where wage does not become an impediment to the development of a nation.
So there's no going back on this. That is the way it's going to be.
That's the way it's going to be.
That is what you have decided. Right. There's already panic in the civil service regarding this. Can we get a confirmation from you after the parastatal chiefs? Where else are you targeting, or are there any more?
That is why we want to have a national conversation. That is why we want to have a national debate. Finally, the Kenyan taxpayer, equipped with the information that is now coming out. How many Kenyans knew, for example, that we spend 88% of all the money we collect on recurrent expenditure? How many Kenyans didn't know? How many Kenyans knew that 56%, 520 billion shillings money we collect from people in Kitmikae, in Galokol, in all these places, we use it to pay our own workers.
Okay.
So once that information is in the public domain, then, but let me give this assurance.
Yeah.
No Kenyan will be forced into this. What we are saying is this, Hussein. Once we have a national debate, we have a rationalization program for the public service. That rationalization program, many people have misinterpreted to mean retrenchment. There are so many facets of rationalization. Number one, we pay about 180 million shillings every month to ghost workers. We must clean up our payroll.
Okay.
We must have a payroll that reflects the people who work for the Kenyan taxpayer.
Okay. We are coming to ghost workers in a short while. We have to take a break now, but you're saying nobody will be forced into this. You've already forced parastatal chiefs to doing this. We have, the president has said we expect them. They must give us a reason why not.
Yeah,
but even if they don't, and they go to court,
if they say, oh, you know, I earn 2.5 million, and if I take a 20% pay cut, I won't be able to survive in Kenya. We will look at him in the face and ask him, surely, is that true? So
if they are earning this amount, Deputy President, then you're saying there's no way around it. They'll have to take the pay cut.
I think they have to.
They have to take the pay cut. You're saying again, you're not sure about whether this will go down to the lower cadres. That will be informed by what? The debate held nationally, or by what? The debate held nationally. We will have a national conversation. So there's a possibility. That is your words. Those are not mine. It will be informed by a debate. It will be informed by a debate nationally. But bottom line is that no Kenyan in the lower cadres will be forced to take any pay cut other than what we have said. Okay, Deputy President William Ruto, still a lot more to be tackled, including wastage of public resources. We're going specific into those issues now, the issues of ghost workers and what the government is doing and what else the government can do. We'll be back after this short break.